for very much, sir. Opinion na po. Ayan. Sir, we would like to ask po sana your comments, your insights. Kasi nga, syempre, nito, VP Sara Duterte initially said na, hindi ako mag-endorse kasi nabudol na ako before. So right now, what we're seeing is may mga friends siya, Amy and Camille, and now the Duterte. Ano po ba itong power nitong endorsements po? Nito, for example muna, ni VP, meron pa bang enough time na maihabol pa? Lalo na nasa laylayan, kumbaga, no, ng mga survey itong kanyang mga ini-endorse ngayon.
Well, unang-unang nagkakaalaman na tayo dun sa alignments ng mga kandidato kasi sa una, yung iba nga dyan kasama pa nga sa alyansa ni President BBM. So ang expected mo naman, sinusuportahan nila yung posisyon ng gobyerno, at least dun sa mga contentious issues, whether ito yung ICC arrest ng former President Rodrigo Duterte or potentially yung issue ng impeachment laban sa Vice President and former Secretary of Education Sara Duterte. Pero alam natin for a very long time, kung maalala nyo, si President BBM opened yung campaign niya dun sa speech niya sa Lawag kung saan very strong yung sinasabi niya. I mean, that was one of the very first times na nakita ko talaga all-out attack si President BBM. Pero kung pansin nyo, yung mga kandidato niya, walang masyado nag-follow through. In fact, up until today, marami pa rin mga member ng alyansa na either sa pagkaalam ko, hindi sumasama sa mga sorties ni BBM. Parang si Pacquiao lang yata yung perfect attendance. Or kung sumasama sa mga sorties, they steer clear doon sa mga contentious issue kasi siguro nangangarap din sila na makuha ng suporta sa mga iba't ibang demographics, including siguro sa Mindanao at saka base of support ni former President Duterte, especially after nung nangyari ang pag-arrest ni former President Duterte na of course something na big issue sa mga pro-Duterte supporters at saka yung mga kababayan natin in certain regions of the country. Yung timing is also important because base sa mga ibang data na nakita ko, up to 21% ng mga ating voters, especially mga Gen Z and millennial voters, ay bumibota on the election day in terms of yung decision nila. So wala pa silang decision until the very last moment. So it's very possible na habang nag-uusap tayo ngayon na 2 weeks removed or more than 2 weeks removed from the election day, siguro a quarter ng ating mga kababayan na hindi pa rin 100% decided because wag natin kalimutan, pag senador kasi ang dami mong options eh. So, ang dali mixed and match yan, di ba? And pwede mo magdagdag bawas dyan in terms of dun sa mga 12 choices na meron ka. So, I won't be surprised na ang calculations ng different campaign, which is quite correct, is that marami pa rin oras to humabol dun sa mga ibang kandidato. Especially if you look at the race, yung mga top 5 medyo malayo na sila in terms of yung preference numbers nila. But if you look at last 2, for instance, ang dikit ng laban ilan percentage points ang pinag-usapan dito. And dyan papasok ang different elements. So kung nasa alyansa ka, talagang fully alyansa ka, yung real ticket ng administration, kasi may sinasabi din may secret ticket, may real ticket. Ang expectation is yung makinarya ng gobyerno, to put it mildly and politically correctly, if I can put it that way. Yung makinarya ng gobyerno could give you a boost of a few percent points. Some put it as high as 10%, some say at least 5% boost na makakuha mo. Because may tinatawag tayong command vote. Not to mention, may mga minsan kababalagan rin nangyari sa mga elections. Kung administration ka, protektado ka dun. Kasi andun yung estado para protektahan yung mga boto mo. Which is not the case, unfortunately, for opposition candidates. So kung ikaw ay medyo nasa number 14, 15, pero you need 2, 3, 4, 5% na maging magic 12, and then alyansa ka, actually malaking chance mo. And then yung ibang kandidato, katulad ni Camille, and in the case of Senator Amy Marcos, she was doing very well nung December. She was well within top 6, 7, 8 last year. Pumasok siya pa rin, and then biglang pabaksak na yung numbers niya since February and March. So I think ang nangyari kasi dyan is medyo naguguluhan yung mga ibang voters sa kanyang positioning. Wait, Marcos ka ba? Alyansa ka ba? Ano ka ba talaga? So siguro ang hope niya ngayon, kasi bumaba siya ng husto, ang laki ng drop niya double digits yung drop niya since last year, is that ngayon makuha niya yung mga boto ng mga Duterte side kasi feeling ko basa talaga niya na yung mga pro-admin, especially supporters sa kanyang kapatid, I would expect many supporters sa Northern Luzon, Ilocos-speaking regions ay hindi na pupunta sa kanya or marami sa kanila ay dismayado sa kanila kasi sa tingin nila, pinapolitikan niya yung mga Senate hearings, pinapolitikan niya yung mga iba't ibang mga issues to more embarrass and criticize their own brother and impress yung mga Duterte base. So nagkakaalaman niya. When it comes to the Villars, alam natin malakas talagang relationship nila with the Dutertes. In fact, during the Duterte administration, one of the Villars was a top cabinet position, DPWH, kaya senador na si Mark Villar. Another Villar was doing very well in the Senate. And of course, the Villar family business-wise was also doing very well during that time. I think it was during Duterte's time na mga Villars naging pinakamayaman sa mga malalaking kumpanya or conglomerates sa Pilipinas. So we know those are ties that bind. And ngayon nakikita natin kay Camille Villar na very clear na yung kanyang alignment with getting the endorsement of Sara Duterte. So that means may mga bakante doon sa alyansa, hindi ito full slate na 12. And then that also means maraming kandidatong humahabol ng last minute boost. So dito papasok yung endorsement tong dalawa. On the part of Sara Duterte, sa totoo lang, I'm not sure what exactly Amy brings to the table in a sense that feeling ko naman either way, whether may endorsement si Sara or hindi, alam natin saan tataya si Amy Marcos because she has been very clear na hindi siya nag-agree doon sa ICC issue, and I think very clear siya doon sa kanyang stance when it comes to the impeachment issue. In short, alam natin malapit talagang puso niya kay Sara Duterte noon pa. Parang Powerpuff Girls man tawag sa atin with former President GMA. May meron pong tao. So, these are ties that bind. These are ties that have been going for a long time. Mas kailangan ni Amy si Sara at this point in time, right? Because kailangan niya humabol. Ang tanong naman dito is, obviously, if Amy makes it back to the Senate, I think Sara can expect a very vociferous support and a couple of hearings there which will reflect the interest of the Duterte side of the equation, whether dun sa arrest issues, ICC issues, or impeachment issue. But on the part of Sara, risky din to. Kasi kung hindi manalo si Amy, that reflects badly on her. And wag natin kalimutan, si Hanilet, na common law wife ni former President Duterte, former spokesman of President Duterte, Salvador Panelo, a couple of different people. Even napanood ko yung vlog ng isang, sino ba yan, si Banat Bay or something. May mga nagsabi na even the former president himself are not fully sold on Amy Marcos. And also, of course, yung dissonance, right? Akala ko galit na kayo sa Marcoses. Akala ko galit na kayo sa Marcos dictatorship. Akala ko gusto niyo na mag-people power. And then biglang ibang Marcos naman endorse nyo. Last time I checked, Amy Marcos did not disown her father or the legacy of the Marcos dictatorship. As last time I checked, I'm not sure nag-apologize si Sara kay Amy when it comes dun sa mga sabi niya, hukayin ko yung bangkay ng ama niyo, yung mga ganun. So, this looks like too much political convenience and too much dissonance. If not, some would say hypocrisy. And nakikita ko yung comments ng ibang kaibigan natin na supporters ng Duterte. Sabi niya, wait lang, nagpabudol na tayo sa isang kapatid, ngayon magpabudol naman tayo sa kabilang kapatid. Meron naman mga DDS na Duterte supporters na nagsabi, well, naniniwala kami sa political judgment ni Inday Sara, so susunod kami sa kanya. So interestingly to see, in the coming weeks, malalaman natin how unified ang Duterte support when someone like Sara Duterte endorses someone na hindi unifying or actually polarizing among the Duterte base. Because for all we know, may mga divisions din within the pro-Duterte camp, di ba? Alam natin, those divisions are the very reason Sara Duterte is not the president today or did not run for the president. There's the other side of this equation. President Duterte wanted Bongo, for instance, to be his presidential candidate back in 2021. So, those fault lines could be exposed if Amy's numbers don't significantly improve in the coming days. Ibig sabihin, marami pa rin mga Duterte supporters na hindi 100% sold kay Sara and definitely hindi 100% sold kay Amy. When it comes to Leni Robredo, this is where things get very interesting. Because matagal ko sinasabi na all camps have to think about tactical voting, right? Meaning, ang katotohanan dito is majority of the candidates will be from the Allianza side. A, because the makinarya ng gobyerno, pero B, dahil marami sa kanila ay sikat na, may awareness na, may makinarya na, yung iba nga, nasa sobrang may sariling makinarya like the Villars, they just went their own way and the other side, right? But, having said that, realistically speaking, for instance, Kiko Pangilinan and Bam Aquino have good chance to make it. Pero mahigpit yan. So, the issue of tactical voting comes into the picture kasi meron din tinatawag na parang secret alliance or grand coalition. Obviously, as far as Vice President Leni Robredo is concerned, I don't think she has ever or she will openly say na let's create a counter alliance against the Dutertes. But I think for her to endorse some members of Alianza na alanganin din sa mga surveys. So Manny Pacquiao is the other biggest loser in terms of numbers, actually in Okta survey, mas malaki pang nawala sa kanya kaysa kay Aimee from last year, over the past 4 months. Parang Aimee lost 14 points, Pacquiao lost 15 points. Maraming teorya dyan. Yung ibang teorya, wala siyang air war masyado. May mga teorya dyan is dahil masyado siyang kasama sa sortie ni BBM, nagbabadly reflect sa kanya yung unpopularity of the president, right? So, if you look at Senator Pacquiao, he has a chance to come inside, but he'll need that boost. Boost of admin support, makinarya, and boost now of at least some of the Leni supporters who are willing to look past the fact that may mga sinasabi si Manny Pacquiao in the past which hurt the feelings of many of our kababayan na LGBTQ community, plus community, and then of course yung kanyang suporta kay Digong in the earlier years. But wag din natin kalimutan, si Senator Pacquiao, in fairness on the issue of corruption, good governance, walang bahid ng corruption si Senator Pacquiao. And I think what Senator Pacquiao has to do to win over more of this Leni supporters is to say, this time, hindi na ako mag-absentee. Hindi ako purong boxing. Medyo, I think, wala na rin siya sa edad na pwede. Kasi ang dami rin niyang absentee. His legislative record is not very impressive too. So I think the best thing that he can do at this point to win over more Leni supporters to say, sisikapin ko na talagang this time maging productive akong senador. And we know that I think if Sara impeachment comes or trial starts, alam natin si Manny Pacquiao will be much more open to be on the, at least from the perspective of the Leni supporters, on the right side of history than say Camille Villar or Willie Revillame or definitely Amy Marcos na mas malapit dun sa kabilang kampo sa pagkakita natin, or at least based dun sa kanilang positioning or lack of positioning on these issues. And then you have the Secretary Abalos one. Huwag natin kalimutan yung mga ibang alyansa members already met the Vice President last year pa lang doon sa yung festival nila sa Bicol, and in the case of Secretary Abalos, meron na already rapport, maybe not as deep as Pacquiao's rapport with Vice President Leni, because Vice President Leni and Pacquiao had this deep rapport nung election time pa lang, chummy chums, and both of them galit kay Marcos. So this time, in the case of Secretary Abalos, again, kung nakikita natin, labas siya sa top 12, but he needs just a few points para makahabol, right? And again, if he can get some support from Leni and some support from admin, there's the admin machine effect and the Leni effect, yes, Abalos could also make it. And my sense is if Abalos makes it to the next Senate, again, on contentious issues like Sara impeachment, for instance, I think, again, he will lean on the side na mas pabor sa mga, sabihin natin, mga kalaban ni Duterte, or at least mas pabor doon sa position ng mga Leni supporters, if I can put it that way. So, in short, for me, this is also a risky move for Leni Robredo, because let's say, what if hindi manalo si Pacquiao or hindi manalo si Abalos? This will not reflect well on her. Or, manalo sila, but biglang iba yung bobotohin nila when it comes to Senate. That will also reflect badly on Vice President Leni Robredo. So I think it's important for Vice President Leni Robredo, just the same for Sara Duterte, to explain dun sa kanilang constituencies ano yung mga dahilan na nagdesisyon sila na mag-endorse ng mga ganitong kandidato. In the case of Sara and Marcos, and other Marcos for that matter, and in the case of Leni, members ng Alyansa, and a former PDP Laban member like Pacquiao for that matter, bakit nila ginawa yan? They have to explain tactical reasons for that and principled reasons. I think yung nakita ko lang explanation from Vice President Leni was more along the lines that mabuti siyang tao, magkakaibigan kami, tinulungan ako. That's good, but I think you need more than that para mas magka-crystallize yung support behind Manny Pacquiao. And Manny Pacquiao and Secretary Abalos also, I think, have to say more to reach out to supporters ni Leni. Because sa totoo lang, kahapon when I posted something on this, marami mga Leni supporters ay hindi sangayon. At marami sa kanila, I'm sorry, not on this one. So you still have to win over a lot of people. So in short, both Sara and Leni, hindi sigurado na makuha nila yung suporta na kanilang supporters 100%, but they should try to get as many as possible if they truly believe tama itong endorsement na to in terms of pushing yung kanilang adhikain. If not yung kanilang personal interest in the case of Sara, kasi impeachment could be the next issue, yeah.
But sir, paano po ba yung gaano kalaki pa rin ba itong weight nito? For example, DP Leni Robredo, she's running na for local, mayoral race. So ano po ba yung weight na ngayon nito, for example, kay DP Leni, yung power ng endorsement? Yeah.
Well, both of them have strong power of endorsement in theory, right? Sara Duterte is still number one to be the next president of the Philippines. And Leni Robredo, sa pagkalam ko, top 3 siya. After Rafi Tulfo, she's the third most preferred consistently. There's another interesting survey that came out just yesterday as I was discussing this issue. Meron survey ng RR numero nagpapakita na 6 out of 10 Filipinos, and interestingly, more than 7, almost 8 out of 10 Filipinos in Visayas region said that parang sana si Leni naging presidente ngayon. Because sa tingin nila, Leni would have been a more competent president than the current incumbent, right? So, in short, meron pa ring residual authority si Leni Robredo. Marami pa rin natatot ka sa kanya. Marami pa rin may hugot na hindi siya nanalo. So I think it's quite premature, if not really wrong, to assume na hindi na siya national force. Why would Robin Hood Padilla, Abalos, Erwin Tulfo, lahat, even Sara last year, even BBM, all of them kind of make an effort to meet Leni. Some of them went all the way to Bicol to meet Leni. It's because they know, and I'm sure they have their numbers here, na may power pa rin si Leni Robredo. But how much that power can translate into actual votes, I think no one can say for sure right now. But as I said, you're talking about candidates, whether it's Pacquiao, Abalos, or Aimee, who need around 5 to 10% to make it to top 12, right? So hindi kailangan na they mobilize 10 million behind these people. Even if they get 1 million or 2 million extra boost to these candidates, that could make all the difference in the world.
Sir, you also mentioned about VP Sara Duterte, risky po kung hindi mananalo si Aimee, that will reflect bad on her. What can we say about this, sir? Kung hindi nga, I mean, even Camille na nasa laylayan sila no, and Aimee, kung hindi nga sila makapasok, what can we say about the Duterte magic?
Yeah, I mean, una-una, this is not the first time, if ever, makita natin ng mga Villars na ang dami resources and all, and then hindi manalo. I mean, we saw that back in 2010, naalala ko nung time na yan, lahat ng mga bata kinakanta yung kanta ni Manny Villar. Pero mukhang walang bumoto kasi yung mga bata na yun, hindi, sabi, ang joke nga namin yun, kung mga bata sana pwede bumoto, nanalo na si Manny Villar, di ba? Next thing we know, barely number 3 si Manny Villar, si Era pa, number 2, and si Pinoy naging presidente. So, meron tayong kasaysayan kung saan mga Villar strong start, huge resources, and then in the end, don't do very well. And Camille, alam natin, medyo alanganin pa rin siya sa surveys since basically ever, right? So, it's possible Camille won't win. It's also possible Aimee won't win, especially because Aimee, kumpara kay Camille, even more alanganin yung positioning niya because she's a Marcos, was Alianza, and then basically she's jumping all the way onto this side, and she's also not getting full-throated support from former President Duterte. From some of the key other officials within. Anong sabi ni Hanilet? Ek lang daw yung hearing niya on the ICC issue. So, that's an interesting situation. So, I think kung matalo tong dalawang kandidato, or at least one of them, Aimee, I think, is even in a more tricky situation than Camille Villar. That not only reflects na si Sara pala may not be as powerful as people think and that the Duterte base is not as unified, it also could be used to expose or to say, tingnan mo sila sa harap, mga hipokrito pala sila eh. Akala ko galit kayo sa Marcoses. Tapos nagpabudol ka na naman dun sa kabila. I mean, it could be a point of attack from a propaganda standpoint, and some would say substantive standpoint, na not only ito tactically wrong, this could be really actually a point of attack for her rivals. If ever hindi siya ma-impeach and she runs for president in 2028, gagamitin laban sa kanya yan. Eh, hindi ba ikaw yung nagpabudol dito sa kapatid, tapos dun sa kabilang kapatid, tapos ngayon sasabihin mo, ganito, ganyan. So, that's why I said, for me, honestly, I saw that as a desperation move, yung nagkasama sila Aimee and Sara. And to be honest, hindi ko rin naintindihan what was that commercial all about. Ang puro nakikita ko ngayon, yung mga memes eh. So imagine, ang dami pa rin meme na lalabas if matalo pa si Aimee, gagamitin yung meme na yan, na mukha silang malungkot pareho. And then parang di ba yung pag-akyat ng kamay ni Sara, parang halfway lang. I mean, it will be a gold mine for opponents of Sara for eternity basically. Magiging meme na ito, right? So, kaya nga for me, it makes sense for Aimee, but I'm not sure how much sense it makes for Sara. But if Aimee by some reason makalusot, Sara could claim big, right? Na ako yung nag-swing sa kanya. On the part of Leni, as I said, the risk for her is makapasok itong mga candidates na to and then mamaya biglang sablay yung boto nila. Or they vote along some ways na or they will say something na naman na kontra dun sa position at prinsipyo ni VP Leni at kanyang supporters. So both are running risk here. But to be honest, I would say Sara is running the bigger risk in this because the Alianza candidates of Pacquiao-Abalos can count on that machinery plus 5% at least, right? Not in the case of Camille and Aimee medyo malayo na yun na rin dun sa mga ibang service nakita ko. So actually between the two of them, I think Sara took the bigger risk. But Sara took the bigger risk because she's also facing a bigger risk. Unlike VP Leni, na halos sigurado maging mayor, and VP Leni who I think has the option to think bigger in 2028 or not. So I think for Leni Robredo, the risk is much lower than Sara precisely because Sara is in a much more desperate situation.
Okay, second to the last question and answer, kasi you've also mentioned, yun nga, yung kay Leni Robredo, and she's campaigning now for PDP laban yung Duterte. I think meron pang dalawa pang gusto yung endorso si Duterte. Additional si Gringo Nasen and Kerubin. So 14 na, kumbaga. Paano yun pag binoto, no? E di magiging invalidated.
I think my term na tayo cannibalized, diba? I think as we speak already, whether Alianza ka, whether independent ka, yung last 2 or 3 slots talaga grabe yung labanan dyan. And sa kampo ni Duterte, basically Bongo and Bato lang talagang competitive na almost sigurado, right? Bongo consistently number 1, Bato number 3 or number 6, diba? Or number 7, something like that. So, medyo safe zone silang pareho. Although, in the case of Bato, it could be tricky because there could be an ICC warrant of arrest maybe right after elections. Because as we speak, alam natin, parang it doesn't make sense na si Duterte lang hihingin ng ICC. Because yung chief executioner ni Duterte in terms of yung operations ng drug war was Bato, and base sa conversation natin with experts when I was there at The Hague, and of course yung mga public conversations natin with people like Attorney Conti, yung mga ICC accredited experts, they're all clear na 6 to 11 people could be on that list, and clearly Bato de la Rosa is the next one. So in that situation, baka isa lang maging PDP candidate na talagang may chance to stay and stick around there, which is Bongo. So if you're in that situation, you're desperate to put as many as possible. But ang risk naman dyan is magka-cannibalize sila in the sense that sila-silang maglabanan, di ba? Kasi mahigpit na yung sa dulo ng laban eh. So I'm really not sure what the president is looking at. In the case of Gringo Honasan, for instance, I think he's quite competitive. Hindi siya nakakapasok sa Magic 12, but he might get 10 million votes, 12 million votes. So some of these candidates, even if they may not win, if they gather 10, 12 million votes, that could be a rallying cry for them to be an influential political force, even if wala sila sa Senado. So maybe that's the logic, like, get as many as possible, kahit isa, dalawa lang manalo, pero yung iba, nakakuha naman ng 5 to 10 million votes, may masabi sila sa buhay eh. Sa pagkalam ko, si Harry Roque, pag pumunta ka sa Twitter account niya, nakalagay pa yung number of votes sa kanya. Something like 11 million or something. Talo siya sa election, pero yun yung yabang niya na at least ako, I got 11 million votes. So I won't be surprised. Maraming candidate dyan matatalo, almost sigurado, but they will get millions of votes, 10 million votes more. And yun ang magbibigay sa kanila ng plataforma at lakas ng loob para mag-ingay at magsuporta sa mga Dutertes for the years to come. So in that sense, electorally, maybe it's not a smart move, but politically, it could be a very smart move.
But sir, so we're saying na hindi na magmamatter, kumbaga, itong endorsement ni VP Sara saying na mag-iikot ako, ikakampanya ko yung Duterte, yung PDP laban, lalo na hindi naman siya sumasama sa mga campaign rally.
Actually, magulo yung Duterte camp, to be honest eh. Iba yung maririnig mo kay Hanilet, iba yung maririnig mo kay as Bongo is his own guy with his own machinery, right? Medyo magulo eh. And then Bato has his whole drama and journey, right? So, in theory, Sara should be the heir apparent, right? After President Duterte, right? Because she's also the vice president. Pero to be honest, for anyone who's familiar with what's happening there, parang may kanya-kanyang sila eh. And then Mayor Baste, Mayor Baste is also beginning to build his own stature, especially because almost sigurado na hindi babalik si Digong anytime soon. So, aakyat yung vice mayor kung sino manalo sa vice mayor, and hindi naman yata tatanggalin sa balota si Digong. So, sympathy vote niya, halos sigurado naman nanalo si Digong. So maging mayor ulit si Baste, most likely. I mean, almost 100% chance. So in that sense, I think Baste is also building his own base. And in fairness kay Baste, if you look at it from a political standpoint, very strong yung kanyang dating and positioning. If you are a Duterte supporter, you're a Mindanao folk. I mean, in Baste, you find kind of like maybe this is the future, right? Although meron din yung Kitty Duterte na nagte-trending every week, although for different reasons. But what I'm saying is, I'm not very sure, very clear yung pyramid of leadership sa Duterte camp because it was really Digong lang talaga. Digong was the undisputed head. But now he's there na eh. So honestly now, siguro makakaalaman na gaano ka-crystallize itong grupo na ito. And remember, may tension sila Bongo at saka sila Sara for quite some time. I think that's quite an open secret for quite some time. Honeylet also, I'm not sure how... I mean, of course, now they show unity because of the tragic situation they're facing with Duterte likely spending the rest of his life thousands of miles away. But I don't think some of these fault lines and features will go away. So medyo magulo sa totoo lang yung camp nila. So in that sense, ang pinaka-organized is alyansa. Except, marami sa mga alyansa candidates ay ang loyalty nila sa sarili nila, hindi kay BBM. So ang problema ni BBM is marami sa kanyang kandidato ay mananalo, pero kandidato niya ba talagang mga to once they're in power again? So to be honest, at this point in time, both camps, pro-Duterte and anti-Duterte camps, you want to get as many strong advocates as possible so that yung mga swing voters, swing voters in terms of senators, in a potential trial of Sara, not to mention other issue, will move in the right direction. So for sure, Kiko Pangilinan, if he makes it to the Senate, together with Risa, they'll be all out in to say, let's go, trial, and if there's evidence, impeach na natin si Sara. I'm just giving you an example. But kung hindi makapasok si Kiko or some of these other progressive candidates, medyo maging ganyan-ganyan na ulit. Parang katulad na ngayon, ilang buwan na, forthwith, ilang buwan na, 4 months na, wala pa rin, I mean, like, what does forthwith mean? And then it's like 4 months na. And then sa kabilang kampo, you want to get an IME inside, right? You want to get some strong advocates na together with Robin Hood Padilla, together with Bongo, right, will strongly oppose anything against the Duterte camp or Sara impeachment for that matter, right? So you need strong advocates, hindi lang soft advocates. And at this point in time, BBM has only soft supporters, soft allies, not having the best of both worlds. So if you're BBM, to be honest, you would be happy with Leni's endorsement. And if you're BBM, to be honest, secretly maybe you want to have another slate in the final day whereby maybe you'll support someone like Kiko. Because Kiko is not a fan of Marcos' dictatorship, but he's also not a fan of Duterte's. And Kiko and Riza could be very strong supporters of potentially an impeachment of Sara Duterte. So, ito yung mga unsaid realities and unsaid political positioning, and a lot is happening behind the scenes as we speak. And the real, malalaman natin yung totoong mga alyansa come election day, hindi yung mga sorties ngayon.
Alright, thank you very much, sir. Kinilabutan naman ako sa last part, no? Yung last day, last minute list.
Welcome sa Pilipinas, di ba? Talagang, at saka magka-cannibalize, tawag naman dyan. Magka-cannibalize yung mga huling-huli na yan, di ba? Lalo yung mga, kasi alam natin, mga voters natin usually vote between 4 to 6, maximum 8. So, tactical voting means that, okay, kung sigurado manalo itong mga to na sa top 5, 6, and 7, sino mga tutulungan mo dun sa last 6, for instance, na makapasok? Let's say, kunyari, pink ka, obviously, gusto mo si Bam, si Kiko, si Heidi, etc. But, okay ka ba kay Pacquiao and Abalos, etc. Because may chance din mga to makapasok. And then, siguro ayaw mo si Camille or Aimee or sabihin natin, Willie Revilla, for instance, right? Or the other way around, right? Gusto mo makapasok si Aimee, Camille, si Willie, maybe even si Sir Ben, and then maybe ayaw mo pumasok yung mga pinks, right? Kasi sa tingin mo, bias sila kay Duterte. So yun yung magiging mga tactical decisions and voting na difficult ones that will come up. And again, I saw at least one very authoritative survey. 21% of voters make their final decision on the election day mismo. So we're 2 weeks removed. So maybe a quarter to a third of our voters are still not fully decided. So hindi po late. Hindi po masyadong late itong mga final endorsement. And remember, ang endorse ng pareho, yung mga nandyan at the edge, right? Hindi yung mga malayo na, right? And both of them are at the very edge. Camille and Aimee, almost there. Pacquiao and Abalos, almost there. So it's really a nudge that both of them are giving and see who has the better nudge.
Ganda. Thank you, sir. Boboto na ako sa Monday, eh.
Exactly for media, yeah, exactly. For media earlier. Best wishes for the 12 candidates na pipiliin
Baka
na.
may list ka na dyan, sir.
Yeah, yeah.
Patingin naman ang
Pero gagawa ko ng list parang si OG Diaz, mga hindi ko bobotohin, mga ganyan na lang list. Mga blind item lang gagawin ko. Salamat. Good luck sa'yo, Marian. Best
Thank you,
wishes.
sir, ah.
Talk to you soon.
God bless. Thank you, sir. Thanks.
Alright guys, thank you very much. Alam ko na pahaba yung discussion na yan. Okay, let's have more discussion on this soon guys. My goodness, ang dami nangyari sa ating bansa. Wow. Real talk na talaga tayo. And talk to you soon.